that man cannot know. The bloom is the last light of the gods.
The sacred bloom traveled, and my dreams traveled with it.
Hey, welcome to a Pizza Party podcast interview, and I'm Pan Pizza, and we have two special guests, and who are you people?
I'm Philip Gelatt.
And I'm Morgan Galen King.
And we made an adult animated rotoscope film called The Spine of Night.
Yeah, give me the elevator pitch. What is that about?
Ooh, Morgan, you want to take it, or do you want me to take it?
Oh, I've always been terrible at summarizing this thing. You should definitely do it.
All right, The Spine of Night is a... I'm going to screw it up. I'm going to screw up right off the bat. The Spine of Night is an adult animated rotoscope fantasy film that, at first glimpse, looks like a throwback to the films of Ralph Bakshi, like Fire and Ice, his Lord of the Rings film, or the 1981 Heavy Metal. But as you watch it, it reveals itself to be both, nostalgic in flavor, but a forward-looking, ultra-violent, ultra-naked fantasy film concerning a swamp witch, a conniving barbarian, a librarian adventurer, a group of bird assassins, and depending on how you count it, maybe 2 or possibly 3 necromancers over the course of the film. It's full of violence, psychedelia, and anything that you would want if you're an adult fan of fantasy films.
Yeah. Well,
how was that?
Yeah. That was a long elevator, but I don't know.
Damn it!
I was explaining it to someone else, and I just basically said, "Oh, it's like an anthology, but rotoscoped." Yeah. So Heavy Metal meets Fire and Ice was basically what I would explain.
I described it. It's really hard to do that. Like it's this plus this. I've been trying on for size. It's Conan the Barbarian meets A Scanner Darkly.
Oh yeah.
Which I think is, if this movie isn't that, I would definitely watch whatever that movie is. You know.
Yeah. Like you say, how long did it take to make? Like 7 years, right?
Yeah. We finished the short film Exordium in October 2013, and then Phil reached out to me to work on this. I think December that year, and so we started filming the live action reference in what did you say, April 2014?
Yep.
Dang.
So and working pretty much the whole time up until March 2021 when it went out to the festivals.
God.
Yeah.
Like, what exactly makes rotoscoping take so long? Is it just all the frames?
I mean, yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so many like stylistic shortcuts that you have with other 2D forms where you're just really animating the part that you're really looking at. Like it's very common for like holds and loops of background characters to be normal. I mean, often background characters don't move at all. Or even if you're talking, you're only going to animate the mouth and eyes for, 3 or 4 seconds at a time before someone adjusts their shoulders to another held pose. And so with rotoscoping, I think a lot of it's just you're doing everything, every single frame. Like the entire frame is redrawn, everything that moves, 12 times a second.
Yeah.
I
think I recall like A Scanner Darkly did taking some shortcuts because I recall like the backgrounds would sometimes just be warped to match the perspective, or I think some characters were just frozen in the background. Like they really had to make some shortcuts for that.
Yeah, I mean, Bakshi does in Fire and Ice, a lot of background characters will hold, using, because he's coming from a more traditional 2D animation background. So I think it's jarring when very human-looking characters freeze. It almost feels like they're corpses. To me, I feel like if you're going to do the realistic approach to rotoscope movement, it kind of needs to always be moving if you can, but obviously it made the film take a very long time to complete. So
a real dedication to do that. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm making an animated pilot. Like I'm getting some help on it, and there are some. It's traditionally animated, but there are some characters that are meant to be rotoscoped, and it's like crap. I gotta make a looping animation in rotoscope. What exactly would a looping animation be for rotoscoping? Like what's a repetitive task? Gotta think about that.
I mean, I found what we did often was, even if they were just going to be standing there, that just having the line work alive for 12 frames and then looping that, like, so I do the, do the keyframe and work forward and then backwards and then take the backward shot and put it at the other end and then do a second pass to sort of smooth out the loop. And you can, I think it looks okay as a background thing if you're not doing freeze.
In the film, Morgan, I'm assuming the crowds are those are loops, but are there other characters that are looped in the film?
Very few. The crowds we repeat the footage quite a few times of the mobs in the second section, but like that one shot where they're like taking the wagon down the road between the mobs, like that's an insane, like it's like 10 seconds with like 30 people on screen. It was grueling. I think Tang Li did that one. It was a really hard shot. But to get that much motion in the crowd, like it just felt like I wanted it to feel overwhelming and alive.
Oh man, yeah. Some of those crowd shots are amazing. Yeah, the army scenes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I could see why Bakshi would be like, at some point, be like, "What if we just processed some live footage instead of drawing all this?"
Yeah, that was. I saw like the Lord of the Rings cartoon movie on Cartoon Network, like in the early 2000s, and I was like, "This is horrifying. I'm scared. I don't want to see this."
Yeah, those orcs. It's the orcs that are processed, right? Yeah. I mean, I had the same experience. I mean, I saw it when I was a little kid, and it was. I mean, the ringwraiths were terrifying, but I found the look of those orcs to be even more upsetting, just because they feel like they've come from, I don't know, like some other dimension or something. It's really upsetting. Yeah.
It's just so off-putting. I love it. But were you ever just like discouraged, like thinking like, God, cancel this project? It's too overbearing.
Oh yeah, for sure. When we'd first finished editing the live action reference version of it, I thought, this is going to take 3.5, 4 years, and Phil thought, maybe 5. Things always take longer than you think. And I remember we put up a teaser trailer saying it was coming out in 2017.
Oh.
And I remember when I took that trailer down from YouTube, and we weren't even halfway done. And I was like, I have bitten off a whole lot. This is a huge project, and it was, it was tough. It's a long time.
Yeah.
I have this like sort of hippy dippy theory about, and it applies to almost anything that I've made, where I feel like it's almost inevitable that the story of the making of the thing that you're making is reflected in the thing that you're making, right? So in some sense, the story of this film is like an epic. I mean, the story of the movie spans centuries. It didn't take us centuries to finish the movie, but at a certain point, I was suddenly like, "Oh, it's happening again!" Like we're the story of the making of it is similar to the story that we're telling. It's weird when that happens. Yeah.
I mean, it's such a long scope of a film, so yeah. But did you work on other things in between this film?
I didn't personally. This is all I've done.
Oh man!
So, I mean, really, if you count the short films, this is all I've done for 10 years. Phil has done all sorts of cool things.
Yeah, I mean, so we were talking about Love, Death, and Robots before we started recording, which is the show that have written the majority of the episodes for, and like I didn't have that job until year 3 of Spine of Night being in animation production. So it's just a weird, like it's weird that I suddenly had become like an adult animation writer, like almost coincidentally. I mean, obviously loved Exordium, and that's why I approached Morgan to make Spine of Night, but I was approached to do Love, Death, and Robots just because I knew Tim, who is the principal creative on that one. He's like, "Oh, you want to come write these adult shorts for me?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So, so I did Love, Death, and Robots, and then I made a live action movie called They Remain, which has William Jackson Harper in it, who's in NBC's The Good Place, and he was in Underground Railroad on Amazon Prime, and then I've been video games. I've been writing video games. I've done all kinds of stuff while poor Morgan has been chained to his desk, suffering for his love of rotoscoping.
Oh man, Damn, you pulled a thief in the cobbler, except you actually finished.
Yeah, right.
I mean, we hadn't been such an independent production, I mean, no one would have ever had the patience to let it be completed. I think it was really because of it, like the flexibility we had by being such a small team that even made it possible to actually complete it eventually.
I mean, and I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, sorry. Where did the funding come from?
Yeah, so we started at the time, way back in end of 2013, beginning of 2014, basically entirely self-financed because I was already a screenwriter at the time, but I was I don't know. Morgan's heard me say this stuff so many times. I have a very fraught relationship with Hollywood in general, and at the time, I was feeling incredibly frustrated with various things that were going on in my career. So I saw the short film and was like, oh, I love this. Like, this is, I love this style of animation. I love this flavor of fantasy that's sort of like low fantasy, psychedelic and violent and just like for lack of a better term, kind of insane. And it felt to me like exactly like what I wanted to do. So I reached out to Morgan, as we've said, and we started working together. And I suspected at the time, I was very confident at the time that nobody would finance this movie. I mean, we would have been laughed out of any room that we attempted to get into if we were to say we're going to make, like a hard R violent fantasy film, that done in this old school animation style that nobody really does anymore. And on top of that, it's not based on any famous author's novel series. Like it's not Robert Jordan. It's not George R. R. Martin. It's not Robert E. Howard. It's just its own thing. I mean, nobody would have financed it. So I just thought, let's start. Like, let's write the script. Let's get a warehouse and let's just go and see what happens. I mean, it is a little bit, in my mind, it was like a shortcut to getting it made. But of course, it also took 7 years to finish it. So anyway, so the financing, yeah. So we started basically self-financed. I put the first chunk of money together that got us through the first couple years, at which point it became clear that we were going to need more money to finish it if we were ever going to get it done, right? So at that point, we had enough animated that we could show to people, like, this is how the movie's going to look. This is how the animation is going to look. These are the backgrounds. Like, this is a pretty, you could see what the finished project was going to look like. And at that point, we sort of went out and approached the bigger name voice talent that we put into the film. And then once we got them signed on, we were able to, to get a little bit more money to finish the film. So it was, we had 7 years. There were many stages to the financing, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. But let's backtrack to, it started as a short film. Like, explain how that got made.
Oh, the long version is I had wanted to do film, and in college I'd gone in for art. I found that a little classical and not to my taste, so I moved into mass communications, like video editing, and I immediately wanted to do film, but I was already years into my degree, and I was like, well, I'll just finish this up and hopefully be able to turn this into, combine my love of, two-dimensional art and filmmaking. But then that didn't work for a long time, and I mostly worked doing graphic design at a small record label. Anyway, eventually, all of that sort of ended, and I was eager to get back to doing what I'd set out to do in the first place. And animation was the thing I could do in my house that didn't cost anything except time. And so then, pretty quickly, I was like, I realized the limitations, sort of puppet style, flash animation, and wanted the flexibility that I'd have with live action. And I grew up totally in love with the Bakshi films and all the rotoscoping of the era, so it seemed like a path to explore. So I did several short films, like refining the process and workflow and trying to get a style that I liked. And the Exordium itself, I'd showed a few. I was living in Philadelphia at the time, and a guy who I was friends with, Josh Jones, made short film, or was working on his own short films, and got some of his friends together, and we shot all the live action reference stuff over 2 days. And then I took it back to the house and drew it for just about 10 months straight. And my wife was very patient while I just sat in the corner and drew all day, every day. And then Machinima, if you remember them.
Oh, yeah.
They reached out to me and were putting
That's a
together...
good reaction.
Yeah, I mean, that's about fair.
Yeah.
But they reached out and were like, we're putting together an interactive film festival that was going to be in a gallery space in LA, but then also online. And they wanted to take one of my earlier short films to put in there, and I was like, hang on, I'm almost done with this other one. So I stayed up for like almost a week straight, just trying, like I'd sleep for 2 or 3 hours and just get right back up to hit their deadline to get Exordium out in time. So eventually I got that to them. It showed at their thing, and someone saw it there and sent it to Phil, and then he reached out to me.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. And nothing bad happened with Machinima after.
Right. I've had, back in the day, because I put the video up on my own YouTube channel, they were constantly sending me copyright strikes against my own thing. And I was like, guys, look, this is, I double checked the agreement. You don't own shit. So anyway.
God.
I have jokingly said that Spine of Night is the best thing to come eventually out of Machinima. That may not be true, but it might be,
Possibly. They owned like everything, and then they just vanished from existence.
Yeah, this doesn't need to become a tangent about Machinima, but where did they go? Like, they must have just sort of like dissipated into other like areas of content creation, quote unquote, to use corporate speak. I really have no idea where they disappeared to.
From what I understand, some other company, some bigger company, bought them up, and whatever company that was like, hey, all these YouTube videos might get us copyright claimed or something, or sued, so let's just delist them all. So now all the videos they had on their channel are just privated.
Keeping it classy. I love it.
Just a lot of lost media now thanks to that. Yeah. But
it sucks.
With the film, like, was there something like that you just had to ask yourself, like, how are we supposed to rotoscope this? Because I think I saw in the behind the scenes there were like scenes where they're riding horses, and it's like, were there horses in the movie?
The horses, it's the absolute best footage in the behind the scenes when
we had a real horse in the warehouse.
We had all of these very talented actors astride a yoga ball bouncing in place.
Yeah.
To simulate the horse riding, the footage of which is, I think, hysterical.
It's absolutely hilarious. There's one clip of the guy who plays Galsar, who's a very good friend of mine named Jordan, and it's him. Like, you can hear us off camera laughing at him. It's like him, and he like throws his leg over the yoga ball and just like riding that yoga ball so hard, and then like he can't keep it together and just like swears under his breath and like dismounts the yoga ball. I find it endlessly hilarious.
Oh, that seems so self-conscious to like film this kind of movie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's one. Also Jordan. There's another clip. Morgan, do you remember this one where he's riding into the distance, and we had him on the yoga ball just like in the corner, like he was like out of the warehouse,
just like with his face up against the wall.
It's so much fun. I mean, so we had the yoga ball. There were a couple of like real like prop stars in the film. The yoga ball was one. I bought a bunch of like like high school wrestling mats that we put all over the warehouse for people to like fall onto. And then the one thing that we had, I do not remember who told us to buy it or who found it, but it was like such a lifesaver, was this piece of like painter scaffolding, so with a platform in the middle that you could like lower or raise depending on what you needed. And we used that thing for everything. It was like, where the throne sits, it was the tree, it was the wagon, it was like doorways, it was caves, and it also served like sort of like our crane, like for like high angle shots. That it allowed us to like get the height that we needed. So, or low angle, even we could put actors on it and get below it. It was just one of those things. You don't realize how useful it's going to be until you have it, and suddenly it's everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but do you have a favorite short from this from Spine of Night, because I think my favorites were the silhouette one and the one where the couple were just embracing their death.
Oh, look at you. That's so. I'm sorry, Morgan. You should talk about that. That's amazing.
I mean, we both love that sequence a lot, and I think for some people it's a bit of an intermission between all the ultra-violence that drags a little. But to me, that's the heart of the film.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's sort of its mission statement, and I wrote it very consciously thinking about my wife and I and our relationship with mortality and existentialism. So personally, that one means a lot to me. But in terms of animation, the silhouette one was by far the most fun to draw, because to anyone doing rotoscoping, may I suggest experimenting with silhouettes. It's much, 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 much faster to animate.
Oh, yes.
And, you could do giants, and the gore looks even grosser in and like when it's a silhouette, like it's the blackness of the blood spatter. So that whole sequence was a blast to do.
We also hired a guy to make like old school tank effects for that sequence, which is I don't know if many people have really clocked that, but if you look in the back, a lot of the backgrounds there are we just found this guy in where is he? Somewhere in the South Carolina, North Carolina, and he does all kinds of like old school effects work, but one of the things was tank work, and so we had to make us a bunch of like really rad clouds and effects. And he had this completely insane thing he wanted to do where he was going to okay, Morgan, see if I get this right. He was going to project the movie through the tank, right? And then refilm it so that the animation was sort of being diffused through the liquid, right? Isn't that basically what he was doing? Yeah.
The test results were amazing. It's such a cool look. It looked ancient and cosmic, and almost it was just the rear projection backlighting, like the way it made light arc through the water or the fluid was so cool. But it ended up being a thing that was, I still think we should consider it for a short film or something. But like we had to commit the film so much earlier because we wouldn't be able to edit anything once it was being refilmed. So we never, and it was a big stylistic departure from what we'd been doing. Like it was a real leap of faith that I wasn't quite ready to do for the whole film. But oh man, did it look cool.
Yeah, it looked really cool. Yeah.
Can you clarify tank? Like, what do you mean by that?
Oh, okay. So tank effects are like, if you I'm trying to think of famous ones. Like Morgan, what's a famous cloud tank effect? Like the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, when that like enormous dark cloud that the Ark, the sky over when the Ark is open. So all that's created in a massive tank of water, and they're dropping like ink, or it's not ink. What is it, Morgan?
Yeah, like ink and paint, and like flowery
okay, I understand. Yeah, because in the movie Disney's The Black Hole, the way they made the black hole was like a big, just gigantic fish bowl, but like swirling paint. I get what you mean. Okay.
Yes. So exactly that. So this guy, unfortunately, he couldn't build. I mean, his tank was pretty big, but like to do really awesome tank effects, the tank itself needs to be physically, I mean, relatively enormous. Yeah, massive. So he did what he could. But I don't know. I just love that stuff so much. I think it's so cool. So yeah, I think probably the silhouette sequence is also my favorite. Although I want to flag my favorite scene in the film, which comes in the second story, which is the story about Faye, the like adventurer librarian. And my favorite scene is the two villains in the basement, in the dungeon, like just talking about evil necromancer stuff and magic. And it's like not only my favorite scene in the movie, but it's maybe my favorite scene I've ever been involved in at all. It's just like everything for me creatively coheres in that scene. It's like the performances, the animation's beautiful, and I just love villains talking to each other. So anyway, that's my favorite scene.
Mm-hmm. Hang on, excuse me. Oh yeah, but I wanted to ask. Sorry, I have heartburn. But I wanted to ask, like, you had some guest voices like Patton Oswalt. Did he did you film him, or did his voice just come in and someone else was the actor?
Yeah, so for basically all of the name cast, they were only voice actors, which is weird to do. I mean, that's not at all the normal process for a voice cast. Normally you would record the voices first, and then the lip sync would be done to the voices. But because of the way that we did it, they came on at the end, or relatively close to the end, and recorded their parts, and had to basically match the previous performance that had been animated, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask about.
Yeah.
Like, how do you match that up?
So it's an interesting, like, it's weird, right? It was a weird thing to ask actors to, but it's also like a skill that actors, screen actors at least, really do have to have, because so much live action footage is re-looped or re-recorded in post, right? So a lot of actors are actually quite used to matching lip cadence. So that's basically what they were doing here. And even so, and I've said this, a bunch, and I really do mean it, like, you would think, oh, well, they wouldn't be able to, like, change the performance that much because they have to match the timing. But I have to say, all of them were able to bring something new to it and really deepen the characters in really fascinating ways, in ways that I think Morgan and I were both caught off guard by, in like a really exciting way. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
So, which was recorded first, the voices or the performance?
Oh, the performance. Yeah, the performances were all recorded. Like, we didn't bring, we recorded the performances back in 2014. We didn't bring any of the bigger names on until 2018 or beginning of 2019, with the only exception being Betty Gabriel, who people might know from Get Out, and she's in a bunch of Blumhouse movies. She's such a fantastic actress, but we hired her, we cast her, like, she was still in Juilliard, still in acting school, and we cast her like the day she graduated from Juilliard. She got on a train and came to our warehouse and shot all of her scenes with us in the warehouse, and then went on to be in Get Out and all kinds of other big things. And then very graciously, she also had to re-record her audio, so she then came back and redid the performance for us once we were at that stage. So
yeah.
Yeah.
With the voice actors, did you record their faces and just map it onto the other bodies?
No. Nope.
Oh, okay.
Nope.
Yeah, because I'm just making sure. It's like, it seems so confusing just to have two actors essentially for this thing.
Yeah, it was conceptually a lot to sort of figure out how to make it all work, but in the long run, I mean, like Phil was saying, their ability to loop to the performances we had was amazing. We re-lip synced a couple of things, but mostly didn't have to. Yeah,
I mean, and if you look at Richard E. Grant's character, Richard E. Grant plays the Guardian. I mean, he didn't even have that much lip sync because he's wearing a mask, and then he narrates that silhouette sequence we're talking about. So he actually had quite a bit of freedom to make that performance his own, which is really cool.
That's good. Are there any other wild shortcuts you guys took for this?
I don't think we took a single shortcut.
Well, I mean, the mask thing is a good way to get away from lip syncs.
I mean, I keep saying the next project, everybody wears a mask, or nobody's ever, their face is never on screen. It's all
do it.
I mean, there were some things for time eventually. Like, one of the advantages of rotoscoping is because we were able to film everything with motion reference actors, we could put together a pretty tight cut of the entire film from very early on. Like, before we animated a single frame, we had a very watchable, at least to us, cut of the entire thing, beginning to end, because the last thing you want to do is animate something and then have to cut it for time. Because it's just so grueling to lose, even a second of animation's a day of work lost.
Mm-hmm. Would you ever just release that version where it's just all the live people with no animation?
We think it's. I don't know, Phil can tell the story better than I can, I guess. But like, we showed it to people after. We're so proud of our work. We're like, look at this awesome movie we're making, and it was just absolutely incoherent if you didn't know the script inside and out. Like, you couldn't tell where anyone was because they're just in front of a white wall. Like, the bloom itself was just like a piece of cardboard on the ground we told everyone to look at. So, like, it was just it was it's neat, but it's incomprehensible if you have not memorized the script.
I mean, I still think it's a brilliant piece of art, but yeah, it is. It is.
It's a stage play.
It's like the Our Town version of a fantasy film. I mean, after people have seen the finished product, I guess it would be comprehensible to them. But that was real. Those raw viewings were so much fun.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any projects coming up?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Unless it's although I understand you just finished one, you can't think about another one already so soon.
Well, I mean, I finished drawing back in March, so I'm coming up on, this is like 10 months for me, where I haven't been drawing every single day. At first, I was like, I'm never doing this again. But my position on that has softened over the year. We've been writing. We have, we've been writing related works, and I hope we get to get a bigger crew together. And
that was a very legalese answer to the question. These are related works. If you see subsection 2 of our contract.
Well, I don't want to be like, I think it's always annoying when you're like, it's gonna be a trilogy and there's a series and everyone's gonna get a spin-off. But so I wouldn't put it that way, but we've been playing around with outlines for the world and other stories that could be told in this world. And I think if we could get a team together and that would make it not take 7 years next time, it'd be pretty exciting. I'd like to get it. Let's get it in under 3.
So you're still up for rotoscoping?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of technological advances that we could take advantage of without losing the aesthetic that I like.
Mm-hmm.
So, at least I hope so.
Yeah. Well, one thing I do wonder is how Scanner Darkly was even made with all the shading that they had to do. It's just it just looks ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a lot. My brother, Alexander King, worked on this film with us, and after he was done here, he went to work at Minnow Mountain on the Amazon show Undone.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I've been wanting to watch that.
Oh, it's good. It's good, but it's got a lot of the Scanner Darkly people, and I think it's sort of it's the future, the next several generations of that same approach and workflow. So hopefully, we can learn something from all that in terms of applying more complex shading and painterly details and stuff. I'd love to be able to play around with all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is there anything more you want to say on Spine at Night before? I don't know, because I wanted to also ask about Love, Death, Robots.
Oh yeah. I usually say my final thought on Spine of Night is that if you love any kind of fantasy, be it Tolkien or Robert Jordan or anything else like that, and you're at all curious about what a very adult animated fantasy film is, you should check it out because you might love it. And it is, I think, I don't know. I love it, as I keep saying, but it's like a project I think we're both very proud of, and it is nerds owe it to themselves to check it out, just in case. You might love it. You might need a little bit more necromancy and a little bit more Swamp Witch in your life, Yeah,
there's a lot of people that want dark fantasy and just that era of animation back.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, you first.
No, I had nothing.
Okay.
I started talking with no thought.
Okay. Well, I mean, Love, Death, Robots is basically a throwback to heavy metal, and how did she get involved again? Tim.
Yeah. So yeah, I got involved with Love, Death, and Robots because I have known Tim Miller, who is the notably, I guess he's the director of the Deadpool movie. I've known him for years, almost. I mean, a little bit longer than I've known Morgan, but not that much longer. And we had been trying to work together for a long time, and he himself had been trying to make a new version of heavy metal. So, as you say, heavy metal is very much in the DNA both of Spine of Night and of Love, Death, and Robots. And then after he made Deadpool, he and David Fincher, who he is friends with, took the idea of doing, adult animated shorts to Netflix and sold the idea to Netflix. At which point Love, Death, and Robots was born. And then, because I've just known Tim for a long time, he called me and said, "Oh, do you want to write these for me or with me, or do you want to be involved?" And I said, "Oh, absolutely. I would I would love to be involved with this." So yeah, that's how that happened.
Yeah. Favorite short from there?
Oh, okay. So I have two. I really, really, really like the one that's called Secret War, which is about the Russians in Siberia or someplace, and they're like in the middle of World War II, and they're fighting these like ghouls that are climbing up out of the ground. And I love it. I think the animation is beautiful. You can find online. I can't remember the name of the studio who did it, but they did mocap
Blur?
a horse to get. It's not Blur. Blur's Tim's company. They didn't do Secret War though. They farmed it out to maybe it's Digic. I don't know. I can find. I can send you a link to it. But if you find the studio that did it, they have some behind the scenes footage, and they did actually mocap a horse to do their horse animation, and it's absolutely incredible. And I really like horror, and it's that there's horror in the DNA of that show, but that was one where I got to like play a little bit more in a horror vein. And then my other favorite one is also from the first season, and it's called Zima Blue, and it's about the like intergalactic artist who is being interviewed and has this particular color that he uses in all his pieces, and it's the story of why he uses that color. I love that one.
Yeah, the Robert Valley one. Yeah.
The Robert Valley one. Yep.
Yeah. 'Cause I'm glad they brought him back for season 2, but
Yep.
You didn't work on season 2, right?
No, I did work on season 2. Yep.
Oh, okay, just making sure. Yeah, because it seems like season 1 and 2 are very kind of different from each other.
Yeah, I mean they are. I think to me the big difference between them is honestly mostly runtime. I feel like season 1 feels different because there's just more of it. Like I think it's over twice as long as season 2. So when you take it in its totality, it feels much more varied than the second season, which is because it's shorter. There's just not as much runtime to do as many crazy things, basically. But a lot of those. So I also wrote a bunch for season 3, which is coming out sometime this year. Some of those in season 2 started as scripts in season 1 that we didn't do, and then they got ported over to the second season. So I mean, there is a continuity there, but I completely understand saying that it feels different because I do agree that it does. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, how come there were less episodes for season 2?
No, there were less episodes, to be totally honest, because they wanted to get the season out faster. So what they did was they ordered season 2 and 3 at the same time, and then just made each of them half as long. So it's a little bit of a production cheat, basically.
I see. Yeah, sometimes Netflix splits up those seasons, but I mean, I assume this is the first year. First I've heard of season 3 of Love, Death, Robots. So I mean, are you allowed to say that?
I think I'm allowed to say it. Yeah,
okay.
I'm pretty sure I am.
So yeah, season 3 of Love, Death, Robots coming eventually. I don't know when.
Eventually, yeah. I think sometime this year. So,
ooh,
yeah.
Well, we're pretty early in the year, so okay.
Yeah. we're only 12 days in.
Dang. Okay, sometime in the next year, I guess. Yeah.
In the next 12 months.
Yeah. What else do I have to ask?
Oh wait, I want to know if Morgan has a favorite episode. Morgan, did you watch all of the second season?
Yeah. I mean, obviously the one with the brothers on the Arctic ice was amazing.
Yeah, the Robert Valley again.
Big fan of that one. I love the giant man. I thought that one.
Yeah, that one's great. Yep.
I was just rereading. I mean, I'm always rereading heavy metal and a lot of books from a lot of those artists, but I came across that the Milo Manara Gulliver's Travels one, which I hadn't seen in a long time, and it, like, even some of those shots, because that one's also very naked and very as is his way, and it was and I was like, it was hard not, like, he's trying to eroticize the Gulliver story, but I just kept looking at it and thinking of the Netflix one, and it was too gross, so I couldn't it changed how I viewed that, because the decomposing giant body was so unpleasant. touching, but I love it. Anyway, I like that one a lot.
Yeah, like I like how did you guys have any say in the animation style? Because I loved how I felt like this season had a lot more variety. Like they had a stop motion one, or one that looked stop motion, and
It looked so good. The animation on that.
Yeah, I love that one. I mean, I personally don't have any say in where what studio does the animation. I get to see it when it's in progress, which is really cool. But that largely the way that it works is the as you say, Blur, which is Tim's company. They do a certain number every season, and then the rest are farmed out to different animation studios around the world that that Blur and the producers have relationships with. So. So I unfortunately don't have any say in it, which is too bad.
Did they tell you to tone down the
violence?
Yeah.
No. I on neither this project nor on Spine of Night has anybody ever said to me, "Hey, how about you tone it down?" or "How about you make it less naked?" or anything like that. No, I've never. I mean, maybe that note has floated around somewhere in Love, Death, and Robots, but it's never reached me. So. Because you don't set out to make a like an adult animated thing, to be told not to make it so violent. My one story about the nudity and the sex in the show is that which is another one of my favorite episodes. It's Beyond the Aquila Rift in the first season, which is about the guy who wakes up on the space station and he's way where he's not supposed to be, and then at the end there's a monster. Not to spoil it. So there's a sex scene in that one, and I think in the script just wrote they have sex, right? Because you don't want to describe sex on the page. Like, come on. And then I saw what they had done for the sex scene, and I was like, oh, this is much more Cinemax than I was anticipating. But whatever.
Oh my.
Good for them.
All that short. It's like. Is this live action or is it CG? I almost couldn't tell for most of it.
Yeah, I mean that one and the ones that ImageWorks at Sony do. So the one in the first season, it's like the Space Marine pilot with Samira Wiley, I think is the actress's name from Orange Is the New Black. It's like she has her ship is like her friend, right? It's called Lucky 13. And they also did the one with Michael B. Jordan, I think, in the second season. And that CG, I mean, it's or actually maybe Blur did it. Anyway, I can't remember, but those two in particular, the CG is so lifelike that it is. Yeah,
I thought
it's pretty mind blowing.
Yeah, I thought the Michael B. Jordan was live action. Yeah,
I mean he performed it, but I believe that it is that it's all mocapped and animated. Yeah.
God, yeah, that's crazy.
Right.
Yeah. But were there any unused ideas for Love, Death, Robots?
Yeah, I mean there are a lot. The show is all 95% based on short stories, right? So what I'm doing is I'm adapting the stories into script form. So we have a good degree of unused. Well, there's two stages of unused, right? Like there's a large pile of short stories that we would have liked to have adapted, but I have never scripted. And there's a smaller pile of short stories that I've written scripts for that just for one reason or another haven't ended up on the show. So, yeah, I mean, there's a bunch. I mean, it's a little bit of an unfair question, right? Because, unlike a lot of shows, Love, Death, and Robots, there's no,
overall structure.
There's no overall structure. So really the raw material of that show is any genre short story ever written. So I mean, like we could do anything as long as it fits the creative bill of the show. So there are quite a few that we haven't done. Yeah. Obviously,
you mentioned Peter Chung was considered, but he refused, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the full story. I just know that that he was approached because he's friends with all the directors and producers on the show, and so they had approached him about doing one, and he I'm not sure if he didn't like the story that we were offering him, or I've heard that from other directors too, where I script it, and then Tim and I go back and forth on the script until we're happy with the script, and then the producers take that script out and put a director or a studio on it. So I know of other directors too who have been approached to do a script, and they just they didn't respond to the material, and so they didn't do it. So that's my impression of what happened with that one.
Can you say which short Peter Chung was supposed to do?
Well, I can't because we didn't end up doing it. I mean, I know what scripted is, but it wouldn't mean anything because it never got made. So
that's fine. Yeah. But anything else to say on Love, Death, Robots?
No. I like with Spine of Night. I feel very lucky to have been involved with it. I mean, it's like adult animation, right? Remains a little bit of a niche in America, I think, despite the influx of anime. So I don't know. I just feel very #blessed to be involved in not one but two relatively high profile adult animation things. It's pretty awesome.
Is there any like adult animation on TV or whatever that you're real into, like Primal or Arcane?
I haven't watched either of those things. I have watched the trailer for Primal many times and thought to myself, what's wrong with you, Phil? Why are you not watching this? And I've heard that Arcane is amazing, but I haven't watched it. I don't know, Morgan, is there anything have you watched either of those?
I have seen, like you, I've only seen the trailers. I watch almost no shows at all. I watch a lot of movies and no shows. I think the animation on Arcane looks amazing, and my brother said the show was really good. And Primal, I mean, Tarkovsky?
Yeah, I think.
Tarkovsky, yeah.
He's amazing. Everything I've ever seen of his is amazing. I'm sure Primal rules. It looks like it would be extremely up my alley.
Oh, yeah.
But I haven't seen him. I've spent most this year watching, because we were part of so many streaming film festivals, I've just seen, dozens and dozens of independent shorts. That's been most of my new animation intake, more so than any shows.
So there's a lot of animated shorts that are out there in festivals, yet it's not online anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, so many of them don't make it's what's so heartbreaking about so much independent animation is you just don't the jump from in an absolutely amazing project, short film project. I assume these animators get jobs working in advertising or for a bigger animation studio, and these cool styles and weird things just never get the chance to be made into features. And yet also the shorts just, maybe 5 years later pop up on Vimeo.
Yeah.
So they just sort of disappear into and it's I want to tell people about all this great stuff I've seen, but there's no way to even share it with them.
Yeah, there's a lot of lost media out there that I like to research, but yeah. Because I remember when I was younger, my family went to some IMAX thing, this 3D cyber world, and it was a showcase for IMAX and 3D glasses, and a lot of those shorts are missing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I have these, I've been occasionally trying to cast my mind back, especially doing interviews for Spine of Night, about where I first encountered some of these things, like heavy metal or adult animation. And I suddenly remembered going, my parents took me to DC. The year was 1991 or 92. And they took me to, do you guys remember Spike and Mike's twisted animation festivals?
Yeah.
They still do that at Comic-Con.
Yeah, so I saw one of those, and so I looked it up recently, and I think it was a pretty early one. Again, it was the early 90s. I don't think it had been going on that long. And so I have almost no recollection of any of the shorts that were in that festival. As I was trying to figure out what they were, if I could reach, there was maybe a George Plimpton in there, maybe, or something. But anyway, speaking of lost animation media from our youths, yeah.
Oh, man, yeah. Huh. But is there anything more to say before we wrap up?
I'm gonna, if you don't mind, plug where people can see Spine of Night if they haven't seen it already.
I'll include that info in the beginning also. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But do you want me to? Should I plug it?
Oh, yes.
Is it okay?
I can do that. Yeah, you can do that.
Okay. So you can see the Spine of Night currently. It's rentable on iTunes, the iTunes Store, Amazon Prime, Vudu if you use Vudu. And it's basically anywhere that you might, rent a movie these days. It will be on Blu-ray and DVD February 1st. There's a super fancy steelbook Blu-ray that has one of our alt covers, and it has on it all kinds of special features, including all of Morgan's short films up-resed to 4K and looking very fancy. And a behind the scenes if you want to see some of the people in their crazy costumes. And if you haven't seen Love, Death, and Robots, that is, of course, on Netflix. Yeah.
Season 3 confirmed. Yeah. All right.
There's your scoop. I don't know if it's actually a scoop, but you can treat it like one.
I haven't heard
if you
anyone
like.
mention season 3, so I think it's good. So I think I'm fine. Yeah. All right. But thanks for coming. Thanks for joining
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yep. You're welcome. Yeah. So goodbye. Let me just...
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Yes.